and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Hira Mustafa and these are the headlines. US President Joe Biden says it's time to end the forever war in Afghanistan, defending his troops' withdrawal decision. In his first speech to a joint session of Congress, Biden said removing troops won't endanger national security, but it will demonstrate American leadership by halting the cycle of endless armed clashes. On China and Russia, Biden said he will stand up for the American idea of respecting human rights in dealing with the two, but does not see conflict. Pakistan says Afghan stakeholders need to engage constructively for an inclusive and comprehensive political solution to the conflict. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said this in a meeting with his German counterpart Heiko Maas in Islamabad. The Foreign Ministry says the two sides also discussed a range of issues concerning bilateral and international interests. India has again registered the world's highest COVID-19 infection and its record deaths in a day. The country has logged more than 379,000 infections and over 3,600 deaths overnight. Meanwhile, Pakistan has registered 151 deaths and over 5,400 cases in the past 24 hours. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.1 million lives and infected over 149 million people. Tehran has noted promising developments in the ongoing Vienna talks being held to revive the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. In an interview, the chief of staff of Iran's president, Mahmoud Vaizi, said the talks between Tehran and major world powers are complicated, but good steps have been taken so far. And in cricket, Zimbabwe are 59 for 4 against Pakistan in the first innings of the first Test match in Harare. Pakistan's pacer Hassan Ali has taken 2 wickets, while Shaheen Shah Afridi and Noman Ali sent 1 player each to pavilion. Earlier, the hosts won the toss and elected to bat first. Well, these were the headlines. News in detail coming after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now, the news in detail. US President Joe Biden has renewed his call to end the long-standing war in Afghanistan. He was delivering his first speech to a joint session of the US Congress. The speech also marked Biden's first 100 days in the Oval Office.
Defending the decision to exit United States troops in Afghanistan, President Joe Biden said the withdrawal will not endanger national security. He said it will demonstrate American leadership by halting the cycle of endless armed conflict. On China and Russia, Biden said he will stand up for the American idea of respecting human rights in dealing with the two, but does not see conflict with them. Biden also made a case for his $1.8 trillion investment proposal he believes is needed to rebuild a pandemic-battered economy. The president told the Congress that America is on the move and declared it is rising anew. The president said this investment package will also help the U.S. to compete with rising global competitors.
100 days ago, America's house was on fire. We had to act. And thanks to the extraordinary leadership of Speaker Pelosi, Majority Leader Schumer, and the overwhelming support of the American people, Democrats, Independents, and Republicans, we did act. Together, we passed the American Rescue Plan, one of the most consequential rescue packages in American history. We're already seeing the results.
Pakistan says Afghan stakeholders need to engage constructively for an inclusive and comprehensive political solution to the conflict. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said this in a meeting with his German counterpart Heiko Maas in Islamabad. The Foreign Ministry said Qureshi underscored the importance of responsible withdrawal. It said Qureshi cautioned against the role of spoilers in the Afghan peace process. The two sides also discussed a range of issues concerning bilateral and international interest. Earlier, Germany said Pakistan can contribute decisively to the stabilization of Afghanistan. India has again registered the world's highest COVID-19 infections and its record deaths in a day. The country has logged more than 379,000 infections and over 3,600 deaths overnight. Globally, the virus has claimed more than 3.1 million lives and infected over 149 million people. Details in the following report.
With about 1 million COVID-19 cases worldwide being reported daily and toll nearing 150 million, 1 in every 50 people has contracted the virus. Vaccination is the only hope. As India's caseload crosses the 18 million mark, it continues to receive aids, the latest one from Russia. India's deadly COVID-19 wave has devastated big cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Lucknow and Pune. The pandemic has now firmly gripped many smaller cities, towns and villages where the crisis is largely underreported. Hospitals and crematoriums have run out of space, and funerals are taking place in car parks.
Earlier, this used to be a parking space. Vehicles used to be parked here. But ever since COVID-19 has spiked, we have a huge problem in our hands, as lots of dead bodies come here and people are really upset because of that.
Meanwhile, a hashtag calling for the resignation of the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was briefly blocked on Facebook, hiding more than 12,000 posts critical of the government. However, in a glimmer of hope, a 105-year-old man and his 95-year-old wife in India's Maharashtra state have beaten the virus. In Bangladesh, capital Dhaka's one graveyard dedicated to COVID-19 victims is seeing a major increase in burials amid a new wave of infections. Over in Europe, Britain has signed a deal with Pfizer to buy 60 million more vaccine doses.
We've backed some of the only clinical trials in the world looking specifically at booster shots. I'm delighted to be able to tell you that we've secured a further 60 million doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine that will be used alongside others as part of our booster shot program later this year.
The United States is the only hard-hit country that appears to be handling the pandemic well. However, President Joe Biden has cautioned that more needs to be done. Meanwhile, Brazilians who were due to receive second jabs were turned away after vaccine supply delays. The Brazilian government cut by nearly 30% the number of vaccines expected to be delivered between January and April.
Pakistan has recorded 151 new coronavirus-related deaths and nearly 5,500 more cases overnight. The Health Ministry says the countrywide death toll has risen to 17,680. Overall, more than 815,000 people have contracted the virus. Meanwhile, more than 700,000 people have recovered. Government data shows that there are over 89,000 active cases in the country. Tehran has noted promising developments in the ongoing Vienna talks being held to revive the 2015 Iran nuclear deal. The chief of staff of Iran's president, Mahmoud Vaizi, said this in an interview with the state news agency. He said the talks between Tehran and major world powers are complicated, but good steps have been taken so far. Vaizi added Iran is not pursuing a policy of rushing the negotiations. He warned that certain extremist elements in the US, Israel and some regional countries are working to sabotage the negotiations. The next round of the negotiations is set to resume today in Vienna. Iran has repeated support for a ceasefire and a national dialogue in Yemen to end the war. Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif met Houthi spokesperson Mohammad Abdul Salam during a visit to Oman.
As the governor of Yemen's Marib region rallied troops against Houthi advance amid potentially decisive fighting for the provincial capital, Zarif sat down with Abdul Salam in Oman, telling him that a political settlement is the only solution to the crisis in Yemen. But the Houthi spokesperson said any positive development in Yemen depends on the lifting of siege by the Saudi-led coalition. In a tweet, he said the rebels would welcome such a step and it would prove the reality of the peace offer. Earlier, a Yemeni army brigadier was killed in the ongoing battle with the Houthi rebels for the control of Marib. This came a day after Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman called on the rebels to cease hostilities and return to talks.
The Turkish Cypriot delegation to UN-sponsored talks has proposed a two-state solution for Cyprus. The talks were mediated by UN Chief Antonio Guterres as well as foreign ministers of Greece, Turkey and Britain. Turkish Cypriot leader Ersin Tatar presented the plan despite its prior rejection by Greek Cypriots. The proposal said it aims to honor the inherent sovereign, equality and equal international status of the two states. But Greek Cypriots leader Nikos Anastasiadis said the proposal was a great disappointment. In a statement, he said the Greek Cypriots will present their position in writing. UN envoy for Syria Gary Patterson says there is a renewed interest in stepped-up diplomacy to end the country's 10-year war. He told the Security Council that a new international format could bring stakeholders to the table. Patterson said he spoke to senior officials from Russia, the US, Turkey, Europe and other council members. He also pointed to a significant escalation in the last rebel-held stronghold in northwest Syria. The worsening violence comes ahead of a presidential election scheduled for 26th of May. Meanwhile, a US ambassador said the failure to enact a new constitution is proof that the vote will be a sham. However, Russia said some countries are up in arms against the idea of election and have already declared them illegitimate. In Myanmar, unidentified attackers have reportedly launched assaults on 2 air bases near the central town of Magwe and Miktila. Witnesses said 3 blasts went off at an airfield while 5 rockets were fired at another. There was no claim of responsibility or confirmation of any casualties yet in the attacks. However, fighting between the military and ethnic minority insurgents has flared since the February 1st coup. The latest raids follow insurgents' attack on an army base after which the Air Force dropped bombs on rebel-controlled areas. Myanmar's military regime has so far killed 755 civilians while using lethal force to quell protests against the coup. Venezuela says 8 of its soldiers have been killed in ongoing clashes with armed groups along the border with Colombia. Earlier, Caracas said its armed forces had suffered casualties in fighting in the border town of La Victoria. In a statement, Defense Minister Vladimir Padrino listed the names of the soldiers without providing further details. Padrino paid tribute to the soldiers, calling them heroes who died defending their homeland. He vowed to confront the Colombian armed groups with all moral and material strength. Thousands of Venezuelans have crossed the border into Colombia since fighting in the state of Apure broke out in late March. Facebook beat market expectations for quarterly revenue. It was driven by higher ad spending by businesses during a pandemic-induced surge in online traffic. Total revenue rose to over $26 billion, beating analyst expectations of $23.6 billion. Facebook said in its outlook that it expected second quarter revenue growth to be stable or grow moderately. It warned that future growth rates could significantly decline when compared with past periods of strong growth. The social media giant cited a new pop-up privacy notification from Apple as a potential cause. The European Union has passed a new law to tackle online identified terrorist content quickly and smoothly. The law will apply to content posted online. A fine of up to 4% of an online platform's global turnover could be imposed in case of failure to removing content within 1 hour. However, the law will not target content uploaded for educational, journalistic, artistic research, or for awareness-raising purposes. The host country would have 72 hours to assess if the request was justified and whether or not it breached fundamental rights. China has launched the core module of its permanent space station in a bid to complete its construction by the end of 2022. China has been blocked from participating in the International Space Station. The Tianhe module was launched aboard a Long March 5B rocket from the Wenchang Space Launch Center. The module is the largest spacecraft developed by China and is set to be operational for at least 10 years. An official at China Academy of Space Technology said Tianhe will act as a control hub of Tiangong Space Station. Beijing plans to conduct 10 similar launches carrying more modules before the completion of the space station next year. More news stories coming up after the short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. A new study has found that nearly all of the world's glaciers are losing mass at an accelerated pace. The phenomenon could impact future projection models for ice loss. More in this report.
Glaciers with surrounding communities provide an important water source, and their decline could lead to serious food and water shortages. A study in the science journal Nature provides one of the most wide-ranging overviews of ice mass loss from about 220,000 glaciers. Using high-resolution imagery from NASA satellite from between 2000 and 2019, scientists have found that glaciers lost an average of 267 gigatons of ice per year. The researchers also found that glacier mass loss accelerated. Glaciers lost 227 gigatons of ice annually from 2000 to 2004. But that increased to an average of 298 gigatons each year after 2015. Scientists have long warned that warming temperatures driven by climate change are eating into ice sheets around the world. But who is to blame?
It's hard to separate the fact that the temperature is what is causing the melt with the fact that humans are, by and large, causing the increase in temperature.
Glaciers melting also contributes to higher sea levels that threaten the world's populous coastal cities. The latest reports by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change project that future sea levels will rise by more than a meter by 2100. Scientists say once glacial ice melts, it could take decades or centuries to regrow.
We're not at a point where the discussion is about growing glaciers or even keeping them exactly as they are now. We're at a point where we're trying to keep as much ice there as possible and really slow that rate of loss.
Scientists say the study's overall picture is one of fairly rapid ice mass loss, with no indication it would change soon. But they believe there is still time to put the brakes on melt by reducing emissions.
Urban landscaper developer Mori Building Company has unveiled an updated 3D model of Tokyo. This comes as the city goes through redevelopments for better accessibility and disaster resistance. More in this report.
The first version of the miniature city covering 230 square kilometers paired with projection mapping was unmasked in 2019. The mapping aids in visualizing information such as sea level and railroad line maps across 13 wards in the heart of the Japanese capital.
People who are involved in the city's urban development are not only experts, but also include those who work, live, and run businesses in the area. These people must speak in the same language and talk about things from the same perspective. In this context, I think it is very important to make the information visible so that everyone can easily understand it.
Tokyo has gone through a rapid transformation since the release of the 3D model in 2019.
Aside from Tokyo having various attractive features, from the point of view of a person who has been working on a 3D model of Tokyo for 20 years, the most striking aspect is how the fast city changes.
The company hopes its annual update serves researchers and private developers in planning out disaster prevention and urban development.
European stocks are trading somewhat higher. Markets are reacting to the U.S. Federal Reserve's decision to hold interest rates near zero and digest a fresh round of corporate earnings. London's FTSE is leading the gains, ascending more than 0.5%. The CAC 40 in Paris has also added over 0.5%. The Pan-European Stock 600 and Italy's FTSE MIB have edged up marginally as well. However, Frankfurt's DAX has slipped fractionally. Earlier Asian markets edged up as well. The number of electric vehicles on the world's road is expected to increase from 11 million to 145 million by 2030. This could wipe out demand for millions of barrels of oil and save tons of carbon dioxide every day. According to a report by the International Energy Agency, there could be 230 million electric vehicles worldwide by 2030, conditional on government support. Sales of electric vehicles in the first quarter of 2021 were more than 2.5 times higher than last year. IEA expects advances in battery technology and mass manufacturing of electric vehicles will reduce their cost. These statistics pose a threat to the energy industry that relies heavily on demand for transport fuels for profit. Now it's time to have a look at the weather update across the globe. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.